Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Zox. Today we got a really interesting segment to talk about, and somebody sent me on Twitter this note, and this note has been going around, being passed around social media. Apparently started on Discord, now it's getting to Twitter, Instagram, and apparently it's someone who is in the know for the Giants. I have no, justification that this person is true, real. They actually have insider sources, but there is some truth behind it, and we'll talk about it. I'll read you the note. You guys can, comment below what you think about it, and I'm going to give my take on exactly what is going on here and what the Giants are probably doing, just trying to prepare for the 2021 NFL Draft, which is in about 25 days. So I'm pretty excited about that. I know you guys are too. We're really excited to see who drops to the Giants, what they do, what kind of players are available. Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater, maybe Penei Sewell. New rumors are coming out that he has maturity problems. The kid's 20 years old. What do you expect? And a couple other things. So, I'll read you the note. You guys can, let me know what you guys think about it, and I'll kind of go through what I believe is going on here. So it starts out saying, the Giants have put most of their research into the edge class. There are only two guys that would stop them from going edge in the first round. Tight ends Kyle Pitts out of Florida and Devonta Smith out of Alabama. Penn State Pro Day was more about Jason Owe than Micah Parsons. Coach Chaos likes Parsons. Those two guys have a very close relationship. He thinks he's a good kid, but he'd be taking a bit of a handler role if they were to draft him. Coach Chaos also really likes Owe, thinks he has a wealth of untapped potential. Obviously, Coach Chaos is our defensive line coach. He has an idea of what Parsons and what Owe would offer. Owe doesn't really have the production in college to prove that, he is a bona fide star or really a top premier edge rusher that's worthy of being picked at 11. Really, you're basing all this off athleticism and his numbers, his pro day, and whatnot. So, that's kind of the risk that you're taking when it comes to Jason Owe. You don't really know what he's bringing to this team. You're really just hoping that his athleticism and his tangible traits translate to talent and production at the NFL level. So that's kind of a little bit of a sketchy thing for me. I'm not the biggest fan of that. The only way I would take Jason Owe is if you're trading back in the first round. I'm not taking him at 11. That's a little crazy for me. Then you have a guy like Jalen Phillips out of Miami. The concussion history is really concerning. He's more refined, and we'll talk about him in a second too. So just to go on with this little note that is being passed around, they've had preliminary conversations with New England to trade down to 15. They wouldn't love to take an edge at 11, which is kind of what I'm saying. There's no edge, in my opinion, that is justified, talent-wise to be picked at 11. Kwity Paye out of Michigan, I like him. I like Kwity Paye, but at the same time, I'm not entirely sold that he's a good guy for our scheme. He's more of a 4-3, hand in the dirt, physical pass rusher with upside. We run a 4-3, so it's a little bit different, obviously. We have those outside linebackers. I don't think he's capable of translating to outside linebacker. Maybe Patrick Graham wants to shift towards a more 4-3 style schematics. With Dalvin Tomlinson leaving, they can utilize Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence in those two eye, defensive tackle roles. I don't think they will. I think they're going to stick with the 3-4 that worked really well for them last year. Kind of a 3-4 disguise coverage scheme, trying to get those safeties to move up and down, kind of bait quarterbacks into thinking they're doing something else. So that's kind of what they've looked at. But let's go on with the note. If they get stuck at 11 and Pitts and Smith are gone, there isn't a consensus yet, but they do like Kwity Paye because of the versatility from a 2 and 3 point stance. They like his personality and how he takes to coaching. They love that he's a strong run defender and think he will grow as a pass rusher. So I agree with them in terms of the evaluation of Kwity Paye. I just don't think he fits our scheme well. If they get Pitts and Smith, they are eyeing trading up into the first to secure a pass rusher. Opinion part of this from the source. This sounds like Engram plus, but not sure of this. So if they do get Devonta Smith or Kyle Pitts, they might trade up into the first. They don't have much draft capital unless they're giving some away from next year. So they don't have that much draft capital. If they do want to go up, they would give Engram plus maybe a late round pick next year or this year to get up into the first and get their pass rusher. There's Jason Owe, Jalen Phillips. There's Joseph Asai as well, an option. I think he might be there at 42 though. Giants like their offensive line. They won't go OL in the first unless Sewell is available, which they would have a hard time turning down, but they doubt that happens. Belief is there will be day 2 pick on the OL. So I do agree with this. I think the Giants do like their offensive line. I think that they're content with Nate Solder and Matt Peart at right tackle. I think they're content with Will Hernandez at left guard, Nick Gates at center, and Andrew Thomas obviously at left tackle. The right guard position is my biggest concern. You don't need to go, unless you're going Rashawn Slater, and most of the time you're not taking an offensive lineman in the top picks if it's a guard, mostly if it's a tackle. The Quentin Nelson was kind of the deal breaker for that one, but he was also a generational right guard from Notre Dame. You don't pass up on generational talent. That's a surefire thing. Like, he was a surefire thing, and now he's one of the best guards in the NFL. That was something you couldn't pass on because you're getting a guaranteed day one, like, Pro Bowl level starter. So I think that was a good move on Indianapolis's part. But Rashawn Slater missed last year. A lot of his hype and a lot of his attention is based off of athleticism, intelligence. His film is good, but it's all at left tackle. He doesn't have any film at right guard, or if he does, it's very minimal. So, you're really hoping he makes that transition very smoothly and efficiently. We don't know if that's the case. The Giants want someone, they can plug and play. Offensive line in the second day really has a lot to offer. Wyatt Davis, Landon Dickerson, Ben Cleveland, Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. There's a lot of good guys. There's Quinn Miners from Washington Whitewater. He's a D3 player. I think he might slip to the third round. He would be a great guy. He's a nasty kind of player. So we'll see what happens there. And then Landon Dickerson, not the biggest fan of, a lot of big injury history. I don't trust that he'll remain healthy in the NFL, but he is one of the consensus best offensive linemen on the board. The injuries have really, really hurt him throughout his career. But going on with the note, they say if the Giants don't draft a wide receiver in the first, then they'll try to add a developmental type on day 3. Someone like Amari Rodgers, if he's there, might make sense to me. Tamorrion Terry from Florida State, another guy that we've talked about in the past. They like something about all the pass rushers, and they haven't made up their mind yet. Jalen Phillips' pro day was big for their evaluation. They really liked how refined he is. They're looking for quick contributors in the first round. They're trying to be competitive now. So guys who have missed a year, who are too raw to contribute, probably won't be considered. Phillips is still an option as a result of how refined he is. So I get all the concepts here. I do understand that, the Giants are looking for a plug-and-play player who can produce on day one. Impact player. You don't, in this draft with all the elite talent that could fall to them at 11, you don't really want to pass on a player who can help you day one for a developmental piece, like even Jalen Phillips or Gregory Rousseau. Throw him off there. I don't even want to talk about him as a Giants option at this point. Kwity Paye, I think he's probably the most refined, but he doesn't really fit our scheme very well, like I mentioned before. But, for the most part, I've heard that this person, whoever wrote this note, is legitimate. They have insider. They called the Andrew Thomas pick. They called the Daniel Jones pick. But again, it wasn't that hard to call those picks. The Giants leaked their picks the past couple of years very, very easily. Everyone knew who they were picking. So I'm not going to sit here and act like, I actually consider that. Plus, I have no proof that they actually did call this, whoever it was. So, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure where this is coming from. But this is something that's going around. People are like, oh, it makes sense. And the one thing that does corroborate with this note, this storyline, this narrative, is that the Giants have been sending a lot of their executives to the pass rushers pro days, like, Jalen Phillips, Gregory Rousseau, Jason Owe, even Micah Parsons you could throw in there as a potential outside linebacker to start stacked OLB in day one. I'm not totally convinced that they are not, that they're going to pass on a guy like Rashawn Slater. I think that they could go with a pass rusher, but I wouldn't do it unless you're trading back for the most part. One thing that I did find interesting, though, was that John Mara did say in his last press conference last week on Wednesday, he did say, because we did sign Kenny Golladay to this massive 4-year, $72 million deal and Adoree Jackson to 3 years, $39 million, because we signed those two guys, now we don't have to go with a receiver or a corner. We don't have to get Patrick Surtain. We don't need Devonta Smith. We don't need Jalen Waddle. But, however, it does allow you to open up best player available. That's what John Mara said. He said, you can go best player available in this scenario, and the Giants could very well do that. And I would be fine with that because, more or less, if you don't have an elite level player on the board that's going to fill a need for you now, you don't need to draft them. You don't need to go with, a player that's going to fill a role that you maybe missed out on in filling in free agency. You can go with the best player available, which means if Micah Parsons is on the board and you're like, this kid could be generational, do it. If Devonta Smith is on the board, one of the best, if not the best receiver in college history, do it. If Kyle Pitts is on the board, you don't even hesitate. If Penei Sewell's on the board, you do it. It doesn't matter. Sometimes you just have to upgrade your team because it's the best available. And I think that the Giants are in a place where their defense, adding Adoree Jackson this offseason, I think they're in a good spot to upgrade their defense and really take it to the next level. They ranked 9th last year in points allowed per game. Very, very good. But I think that the Giants, they feel good about their defense. Coordinator Patrick Graham, 1 year in the scheme with a lot of these players. Xavier McKinney is going to be coming back healthy. Still got James Bradbury, still got Logan Ryan, still got most of your offensive linemen. They got they're getting Lorenzo Carter, Ocean Exhibit is back. Not putting much weight into that, but they are better than Jabal Sheridan and Carter Coughlin. I can assure you of that. But for the most part, I do think The Giants' offense is probably the way to go here. If you're going to go with 11 overall, you're better off going with Rashawn Slater and bolstering that offensive line. You're better off going, with Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle or receiver. The thing is, like, the pass rushers, I'm not entirely convinced that they're going to be impact players day one. I'm not entirely convinced that this pass rush class is worth investing 11th overall, even the 15th overall pick. And there's no one that really stands out to me. There's no one that says, this is the Chase Young of the draft. This is, whoever it might be. There's nobody that really says to me, this is their guy. But I will say this: the Giants were involved in the Leonard Floyd talks. He re-signed with the Los Angeles Rams. But at the same time, the Giants were involved and they wanted to get Leonard Floyd. They wanted to sign him. They probably rolled over that money to Adoree Jackson at the end of the day and said, maybe we'll just go that direction instead of drafting a corner like Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley, with the 11th overall pick. But, that tells me something. If they were going to invest big money in Leonard Floyd, who's an outside linebacker, that means they're sticking with a 3-4. They're sticking with that 3-4 scheme, and they are probably going to invest a big resource into it in the draft. Trading back is my ideal scenario because, if you do go back to 15, if, let's say, Patriots want to get Mac Jones, they can trade back. They can trade up with the Giants, go to 11. Giants can go back to 15. Maybe they get another second-round pick out of it. And if you have a second-round pick, you can solve that offensive line issue with 42 and then whatever it would be, 46 or whatever, 47. Solve the offensive line issue. You can get a guard there to compete with Shane Lemieux at right guard. And you can also find yourself a receiver, whether it be Nico Collins, Elijah Moore. Maybe he slips. He's like the knockoff Jalen Waddle of this draft. There's a bunch of players. Joseph Asai from Texas. I really like him. I think he would be a great ad for us if we went with a receiver in the first round. There's a bevy of options. Nick Bolton, another guy I think will go a little bit. Maybe Zavin Collins out of Tulsa. There's some really great players the Giants can add. And even if they went back to 15 and got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame, I love him as a linebacker. He's a fantastic pass coverage linebacker. He would fit perfectly. He would be the perfect fit next to Blake Martinez, in my opinion. So very interesting here. But this is a very interesting thing that's been going around Giants Twitter and Giants social media. I see where the logic is. I see where they are looking at this because a lot of the Giants' main front office people have been involved in the scouting of these major pass rushers like Kwity Paye, and Greg Rousseau, Jason Oweh, and Jalen Phillips. So I see what's going on here. I do understand that they are sending a lot of people to evaluate these pass rushers, but that doesn't mean it's for the first round. It could be for the second round. They could be looking at the second round. Maybe they're saying first round's easy. We have those guys evaluated already. We have those guys already on the list. We know we're just going to go best player available. But the position that we really need to evaluate for the second round is pass rusher, because Jalen Phillips and his concussions, that's terrifying. I think teams probably say the same thing. Jason Oweh, no production, great athleticism. Do you really invest a first-round pick off of hype, off of athletic ability? Not really. You take mid-round shots on players with athletic upside, not players who don't have any production from college and really have no film to look at. So that's kind of my concern with Jason Oweh. But at the end of the day, I think that, they can go best player available. They don't need to be scouting all those big guys because you can see them on film. You can see that. But those secondary ones, those are the ones that Joe Judge loves to evaluate. Think about the Patriots model. They find players in the second round, third round, fourth round that always end up contributing in some way. And that's what I think Joe Judge is looking at right now. He really wants to see and go do the scouting with him and Patrick Graham, some of those other guys, Kyle O'Brien from former Lions exec. The Giants have signed a bunch of Lions guys recently. So I do think for the most part the Giants are doing a good job of evaluating talent that they need to help their defensive line with. The pass rusher position specifically, they're doing a lot of great evaluations because I do think that they want a pass rusher because they didn't get Leonard Floyd, but it doesn't convince me that they're going to go 11 or even 15 in a trade back. You can go BPA and get yourself a good pass rusher in the second round. I think that's kind of what they might do. And even the third round has a bunch of offensive linemen they could look at. Matt Parrott was ultimately going to be a starter last year until he contracted COVID-19, I think at right tackle at least. So, we'll see how this goes, guys. This is an interesting narrative. Just wanted to touch on it because I know some people have been sending it to me, and it is interesting, and it does make some sense. There is some logic behind it. But, again, I don't know if the Giants are getting rid of Evan Ingram, after not unless they get Kyle Pitts. It doesn't make much sense to me. They do have Kyle Rudolph, but I do think they really like Ingram. I think he really stretches the field for them. He's a great attack in the seams. So we'll see what we do there, guys. But I hope you enjoyed this little video just addressing this interesting rumor that has been flowing recently. But as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe below on YouTube. Turn on notifications for Apple and Spotify. Make sure to follow us on TikTok at Fireside Giants. Really appreciate all the love recently. And we will catch you guys on the next video.